Hello everyone. If you're experiencing ME/CFS, long COVID, fibromyalgia, POTS and related conditions, and you feel like you're doing your best, you're trying to pace, trying to rest, watching videos, practicing techniques that you're learning, and yet you still feel you're stuck, it's very easy to think, I must be doing it wrong. I'm failing at recovery. What I've seen in myself and other people is often that you're not doing it wrong. There are just a few understandable patterns that can keep the system stuck in protection mode. Today I want to share 4 big patterns I see over and over again, and more importantly, what you can begin to do instead. So thank you for the person who's given a like. Do feel free to say hello if you're watching live. Feel free to let me know where you are in the world, and if you're watching the replay, do that as well. So this isn't about blame. This is about getting clear on whether any of these patterns are relevant to give you a clearer sense of where you can put your energy. If they're not relevant, I truly hope you find safe, sustainable approaches that will help you. If you don't know me, my name is Simon Pimenta. I had ME/CFS, fibromyalgia, for around 8-9 years. And thanks for another like. At one point I couldn't walk for a minute without payback and was resting or sleeping for 18 hours plus a day. What helped me get back to life, get back to work, was mind-body approaches and very practical strategies, the kind of tools I now share in these videos. So Jenny Titanic says, hi Simon, Jenny here. Nice to have you join me, Jenny. And if you've just joined, do feel free to say hello in the chat. Thank you for joining me live. Thank you for watching the replay. So let's very quickly talk about these 4 things and let me know which ones are relevant to you by putting a 1, 2, 3 or 4 in the chat. I did all of these at one point. Okay, so they are, number 1, actually, let me just share my slides. Oops. All or nothing with activity. Swinging between doing very little and pushing hard on good days. Number 2, it's all biology. There's nothing I can do. Feeling like your situation is 100% fixed and you have no influence at all. I'll talk about why that's completely understandable and why it's important to consider another perspective. And I have worked with people who are scientists, okay, and they've said to me this stuff all makes sense. All right. Third one is feeling like you're stuck in fear and feeling like nothing touches the fear. Again, I've been there. 4 is intensity instead of balance, going all in on protocols and routines, then burning out and dropping everything because it's not a sustainable approach. So for each one, we'll explore how it tends to show up day to day, why it's an understandable response to what you've been through, how it can keep the nervous system stuck in protection mode, and how a kinder approach that you can start experimenting with can help. So Jenny says 1 and 3, all or nothing, feeling like you're stuck in fear. So sorry to hear that, and sorry if that's your experience as well. So we're going to talk about that. Okay, and at the end, I'll invite you to pick 1 small shift to focus on for just the next 7 days. Michael says, I recognize all of these patterns in myself. Well, it's recognition and understanding, and acknowledgement is the first step to changing that. So thanks for sharing that honestly, being honest, Michael. So let's talk about the first pattern. All right, let's just go back to those slides and skip back. So the first pattern, it's all or nothing. All right, so this can show up in 2 ways, and I talked about this recently in the resilience coaching circle, and people kind of shared which ones they recognized. So this can either show up in being too safe or too gung-ho. And if you don't understand that term, it means just being too going for it and pushing the boundaries too much. So too safe can look like living as if you're permanently in the worst place, even when your capacity has started to grow. And I've seen this in myself and clients, and both myself and clients have experienced breakthroughs when we gently started to challenge this. Sometimes people challenge this more robustly, and I'm not saying that that's what you have to do. If it's better for you to start gently, safely, then that's a valid strategy. Okay, and I've talked about how to expand activity safely in other videos, so do check out the videos in my movement playlist on my YouTube channel. So this is never testing the waters at all, because there's this fear of, if I must never risk anything, otherwise I'll crash. And that fear can actually activate your nervous system. All right. So your nervous system never gets a chance to learn that any activity can be safe. As I said, on the other side is too gung-ho, an overachiever pattern, perfectionist pattern. Let me just move a little bit. I feel a bit better, so I must make the most of this day, trying to catch up on everything in one go. And this often leads to that boom and bust pattern, loss of trust in your body, and more fear the next time you feel a little bit better. So it's the same pattern at two extremes. We're living at the edges rather than finding that safe stretch, that sweet spot in the middle. And what we want more of is that safe stretch rhythm, which I talk about in the video I did recently on breaking the pattern of boom and bust. So again, check that out if that's relevant. So not zero activity forever, and not do everything in one day. Let me know if that's a pattern that you recognize, if you've just joined. But instead of that, we're taking small attuned steps, built-in pauses to check in, decisions made from a little more trust, not just fear. And there might be a time where we decide, actually, I really want to do something, we just do it. And we might experience payback, but we roll with it. And I did that at one point when I went clubbing, because a pharmacist, wasn't a pharmacist, a psychologist said to me, what is something you'd love to do? And I said, I'd love to go clubbing, but I don't feel I can because of my fatigue. And she said, well, what if you rest beforehand, rest afterwards, and just go for a few hours? So that's what I ended up doing, and I had the best time. All right. And I did experience symptoms afterwards, but I was lying in bed with a big smile on my face because I was thinking of all the fun. I did some dancing, I met people, I chatted to people, had a great time. All right. So even occasionally choosing a smaller stretch and pausing when you need to starts to retrain your system. As I say, I talk more about that in other videos, so check out the videos in my movement playlist. There's one about how do I expand activity without crashing. Okay, so pattern number 2, it's all biology. Let's talk about that. So another common pattern is believing that finding biological changes means there's nothing you can do to influence your health. So people often point to research showing immune changes, nervous system differences, altered metabolism, or other biological findings, and conclude, see, it's purely biological. But there's an important distinction. Finding biological dysfunction does not necessarily tell us how that dysfunction developed or what can influence it now. Health is rarely explained by a single cause. So the following things may be factors: genes, viruses, injuries, nutrition, sleep, stress, relationships, our environment. They all interact. So for me, getting ill wasn't random. looking back, I can see that there were contributing factors. I worried excessively about what people thought. I struggled to set healthy boundaries. I was a perfectionist and a people pleaser. At the same time, I took on a job that was extremely stressful. I moved into a management role, and it was only that combination that meant that my health deteriorated over a period of 2 or 3 years, resulting in me going off sick for, as I say, 8 or 9 years. Together they increased the load on my system and made me more vulnerable. Some people say mine is genetic. Genetics can certainly play a role, but genes are not simply an on-off switch that determines our fate. Our environment, including stress, sleep, nutrition, movement, etc., can influence how our genes are expressed. This is explored in a field called epigenetics. So some people might say other people might improve, but my case is different. It is purely biological. So mind-body approaches can't possibly help. Nothing I do makes a difference. That's an understandable place to arrive after months or years of illness. However, biology does not automatically mean that we have no influence. We're influencing our biology all the time. The brain and nervous system are part of the biology. Patterns such as chronic stress, fear responses, hypervigilance, boom and bust cycle are impacting our biology. Mind-body approaches are not about denying biology. They're working with biology. We know that we can influence our biology moment by moment. In his book, Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers, Professor Robert Sapolsky from Stanford University, he's one of the most respected scientists of our time, says that two people can be sitting at a table moving tiny pieces of wood and generating the same amount of stress as someone running a 100-meter race. Okay, those people are playing chess. Okay, so I say genes are only 20%, environment 80%, and I'm a biologist with a PhD. Thank you for sharing that, Jenny. It's people like you who share that perspective that I think is really important. So thank you. Tenders says, I'm from Norwich, CFS, long COVID for 1 year. Hi, thanks for joining and thanks for introducing yourself. Sorry to hear about the long COVID. Mind-body approaches are not about denying biology. They're about working with biology, learning new patterns, sending more signals of safety than danger. And that's something I'd invite you to consider. If we wired you up to a machine that was measuring your physiology, what would it be telling us? That your biology, your physiology is responding in a way that suggests danger or safety? Okay? Gradually changing how the brain and body respond over time can make a difference. This doesn't guarantee recovery, but it does recognize that our biology isn't fixed. Many biological systems remain adaptable throughout life. The encouraging The encouraging implication is this: if multiple factors contributed towards us becoming unwell, there may also be multiple ways of helping the body move towards recovery. So it's not about being dogmatic, it's about being curious. Okay? One small shift you can experiment with is this: if you hear a recovery story, notice one thing that you have in common with this person rather than the reasons you're different. Instead of saying it's all biology, there's nothing I can do, you could say biology is involved. What parts of my biology might I be able to influence? Because, for example, if someone's lying in bed, and this was me at one point, catastrophizing. I was telling myself at one point, I'm going to end up in hospital. That was stressing my system. And I remember the day where I thought, actually, that's not helpful. Maybe I need to change those internal conversations. So I started to say to myself, actually, my mind and body have got incredible healing power. My decisions can influence my healing. So, for example, continually booming and busting, continually pushing myself when I had some energy, that resulted in me experiencing more symptoms. When I decided to focus on my wildly important goal rather than my mildly important goal, my wildly important goal was to get my health back. And I recognized that sometimes I was getting carried away with my mildly important goal. I want to do this now. I want to finish this now. And what I was doing is I was pushing and then experiencing those strong symptoms. All right. So that question, what parts of my biology might I be able to influence, doesn't guarantee an outcome, but it creates something that many people lose with chronic illness, a sense of possibility and agency. Okay, so this is my fave, catastrophic thought. I'm going to end up in hospital. That was mine, Jenny, and I realized I had to catch that. I had to pause, I had to take a breath, I had to direct my thinking in a different direction. That doesn't mean ignoring that part of me that was operating from fear. And for anyone who doesn't know, I've created a process called the SEEIT method, SEEIT. And if you'd like access to that, it is part of my course, but I give it to people free because I think it's a really useful technique. You are welcome to access it. Okay, and all you need to do is join my Facebook group and go to the guides section. The link to my Facebook group is below this video. So people have paid for that, but I offer that free because I think it could help. It can help people, and people have given me feedback that they found it super helpful. All right. So number 3 is feeling stuck in fear. Okay. This is when it feels like your system is stuck in fear, anxiety, stuck in what if thinking, stuck in scanning for danger, and nothing you try seems to touch it. Again, this is completely understandable. If you've had repeated crashes, scary symptoms, invalidation, medical uncertainty, your nervous system has a lot of reasons to be stuck in fear. Jenny says, yeah, it's super helpful. Thanks, Simon. You are very welcome, Jenny. Thanks for the feedback. I was in that state at one point. My body felt very tired and wired. And it was like that fear channel was just stuck in the on position. That was challenging to deal with. At one point, I did experiment with taking a herb called ashwagandha. It's an adaptogenic, and I think it did just help my system feel a little more regulated, and it is supposed to help with that. Do your research, do your due diligence, make sure that it is right for you. I think it's not necessarily good for women who are pregnant. So anyway, talk to your doctor. Do your research before doing it. Don't just take my word. Okay? But it did help a bit. And I also practiced strategies to calm my system. And I might practice these strategies like a simple breathing technique just for 1 minute. Okay? But if we are in that state of what if I get worse? What if this never changes? I can't cope with another stress. Another crash. Your brain is constantly getting message of we're not safe. So one way to begin working with this is to remember that distinction between the scared part of you and your wise self. Again, this is something I help people practice using the SEEIT method, SEEIT. Okay, if you want access to that, link below. All right. So the scared part says things like, I can't handle this. This is never going to get better. The wise part is the one who has got you through every hard thing in your life so far, can see the bigger picture, and has some access to patience, acceptance, compassion and trust. So we're not trying to get rid of that scared part. We're aiming to let it be heard and let the wise part make more of the decisions. This might sound like, I hear that you're scared. That makes sense. After everything you've been through, of course you'd feel this way. So right now my job is to help you feel a little safer by listening to you, by making space for you, by acknowledging what you're feeling. Because when we do that, it's like talking to a child who's scared. When that child feels heard, they start to feel safe. They can start to experience regulation. We're giving that message. We don't have to fix everything right now. Over time, you're shifting from fear, automatically running the show, to something like, that sounds a bit like, I notice the fear and I'm still going to choose a slightly more trusting approach. And we know research shows, for example, with people experiencing pain, that responding to those symptoms in a neutral way, from a place of curiosity and trust, can actually reduce the symptoms. That's what the research shows. So even a small amount of that, repeated gently, starts to change that pattern. So let's talk about that fourth pattern. Intensity instead of balance. Again, let me know if you recognize this. So this can look like going all in on a protocol, thanks for the thumbs up, tool or routine. Doing long, intense practices. Trying to fix everything in a week. Then burning out and dropping out of all of it. So, or with life, big pushes when you feel better, big collapses afterwards, very little in between. It's very understandable. You've experienced these challenges for a long time. You find something that sounds promising, you really want to give it a go. The question I think is useful to ask is, can you imagine doing this most days for 6 to 12 months? If the answer is no way, Jose, it's probably too intense. And well done for the poetry. We want to move from intensity to something that's more sustainable. From how can I smash this week to what can I keep showing up for in small ways over time. Okay, this means shorter sessions, fewer moving parts, less pressure to do it perfectly, more focus on, did I show up at all for myself today? Healing in this way, okay, in that way that's consistent, persistent, but sustainable, okay? Healing and nervous system safety tend to come more from those consistent, doable steps than from occasional heroic efforts. So I want to close a comment from Jenny. I used to do that, but recognise that it's not really helpful because it causes more stress than healing. Yeah, that's totally right. So let's finish with an invitation to do an experiment just for 7 days. So if one of or more of those felt familiar, you're not alone. These patterns are understandable responses to what you've been through. So the point is not to criticise yourself. It's to see where you can gently do something different. So for the next 7 days, I invite you to do this. Notice which of the 4 patterns you recognise most. Is it the all or nothing approach? Is it, it's all biology, there's nothing I can do? Is it feeling like you're stuck in fear? Intensity instead of balance. Choose one small shift for that pattern. For example, if you're all or nothing, choose one safe stretch this week with a pause built in, okay, before you hit the wall. If you're in that it's all biology place, notice one way you have something in common with someone who improved, or one pattern that may be worth exploring. A client told me, I was working with a group, and she said, I'm different to those people. Because the other people had chronic fatigue syndrome, ME, and she had more tight muscles. Her muscles were so tight that she couldn't do the things she wanted to do. And I don't even remember this, but she said to me afterwards, you said to me, instead of focusing on the difference, my challenge to you is to look at what you have in common with those people. And what she recognised is what she had in common with those people was stress. She responded to those symptoms with stress. And I taught a very simple technique to someone this week where they just changed their response to symptoms. And they said they found it super helpful. When I taught an exercise to someone a couple of weeks ago, they said symptoms, I think it was a headache that they've had for years, disappeared. Okay, and they haven't had it back. All right, so next one, if you feel stuck in fear, practice one wise self response to a fearful thought each day. Even if it's just, I hear you, I'm with you. Okay, if you notice approaching things with intensity, choose one practice that you could actually keep doing most days for the next few months. But remember, you're just practicing this for 7 days. That's it. One small pattern, one small experiment for 7 days. If you're watching live or the replay, you can pop in the comments which pattern you recognise the most out of those 4 patterns and what your small 7-day habit is going to be. So today we looked at the big 4 very human patterns that can keep us stuck and some gentler alternatives. Doesn't mean you're broken or at fault for having these patterns. And you do have the ability over time to practice something different. Remember, our brain responds to whatever we practice. I used to practice anxiety, low self-esteem, stress, shame. And I learned to stop practicing those things and practice the opposite. So thanks for joining me. If you'd like more support with this, then I do run no charge resilience drop-in coaching every 2 weeks. If you'd like details, comment group below, and I think I've also put the link below this video. And I've also created the Resilience Coaching Circle. This is a small paid group for people. There are 2 price points to make it as accessible to as many people as possible, either £100 a month or £50 a month. So if you'd like more information about that, comment circle. Again, I have put the link below this video, or send me an email at support@mecfsexplored.com and I'll send you details. So Isabel says all or nothing pattern. Thanks for letting me know, Isabel. So think about how you're going to gently challenge that pattern. Remember that small changes can result in big shifts. Okay, an example I give of that is if you're making a chocolate cake, you can just replace the cocoa powder with ground coal and you'll get a very different cake. All right, in the same way, small shifts that we can make a difference. Jenny says, yeah, come and join us in our group. It's so helpful. So that Jenny's talking about the Resilience Coaching Circle. So thanks for sharing that, Jenny. So thank you for being here. Dare to dream big dreams. Dare to take steps, no matter how small, towards your dreams. If you've got any questions, if you've got any thoughts about a topic I should cover, let me know. Thanks for joining me. Seeing you in the next video. Bye for now.